Salam alaikum and welcome to Abu Dhabi, where the fleet taking part in the 2011-2012 Volvo Ocean Race are about to embark on leg 3 to Sanya in China. Yesterday, Abu Dhabi hosted the Etihad Airways import race, the masters of the ocean parading through the destination village aboard ships of the desert. The story so far, Spain's Telefonica are leading the charge. First into Cape Town, they eclipsed the Spanish-Kiwi collaboration camper into the safe haven port in leg 2, meaning Ike Martinez's team collected their second leg win on points when they arrived in Abu Dhabi hot on the heels of sprint leg winner Groupama.
We're feeling good. Obviously, when you are on the top of the table, you're good, no? So we're feeling great, and billeting is nice. But the truth is that still a lot to go. We have to be focused in the next leg and then the next one, and maybe when the leg 3 finish, we're not there anymore. So we're just trying to be good as much time as we can, and then we'll see how we react when the things they're going to be a little bit worse.
But in yesterday's Etihad Airways in-port race, the Spanish team finished last, whilst Camper were third, meaning just 6 points now separate the arch rivals. For skipper Chris Nicholson, the leg ahead to China is vital if they're to keep Telefonica in their sights.
Leg 3's got so many potential issues with it in regards to Malacca Straits, shipping, and then once we get out of there, possible very strong upwind breeze, big waves, adverse current. So to me, it's a bit beyond the local competition between us and Telefonica. It's about getting up to China in one piece in good shape. You know, I think we have the boat and the team for it, but there's a lot of factors in this one. I think it's probably the most worrying leg of the race.
France's Groupama arrived in the United Arab Emirates with hull damage, but any idea they'd limp to the finish were expelled when they blitzed the opposition in the sprint leg from Sharjah to Abu Dhabi, revealing a turn of speed that's cause for concern for their opposition and has given a much-needed boost of confidence to Frank Camas's team.
It was a great day for us. A lot of wind, a day when we had a very long reach. The boats in the fleet went very fast in those types of conditions. So we were neck and neck at the final buoy, and it was a great battle with Telefonica at the end. And we finished by overtaking them finally, by the port. So that was the great surprise for us, and we're very happy to be where we are.
Puma Ocean Racing, powered by Berg, are facing a long battle to rise through the rankings. After overcoming a leg 1 dismasting, they finished the ocean section of leg 2 in third and are looking forward to putting their troubles well and truly behind them.
I don't want to put the pressure on that we have to start winning legs, but at the same time, you know, at some point we got to turn the corner here. A bunch of thirds isn't going to cut it. So everybody understands the urgency. For sure the leg 1 debacle did not help, and yeah, it's up to us to kind of prove that we aren't a middle-of-the-pack boat, that we're supposed to be up with the leaders.
For Ian Walker's Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, arriving in their home port was a key moment for their campaign. The race village packed with locals keen to get a glimpse of their team. Losing their rig on the first night at sea in leg 1 put the campaign on the back foot, but they battled hard and led the fleet early in leg 2. If they needed a tonic, they got it in the form of an outstanding victory in the Etihad Airways import race here in Abu Dhabi. On board for a ride and the win, the Duke of York, Prince Andrew.
We just so wanted to win this race, and we thought we're prepared to take some risks to try and win the race, because we knew if we could win the race, it would be a very, very special day for everyone.
Having made a bold tactical move that had thrust them into the lead, Team Sanya's leg 2 ended prematurely when they discovered a broken section of rigging. After problems in leg 1 when they were holed during their first night at sea, it was a double body blow for the Chinese team. But Mike Sanderson's team have rallied once more, the boat repaired and ready to rendezvous with the race fleet when they meet again at the leg 3 safe haven.
The guys have done an amazing job re-rigging the boat. We've got a whole new side rigging system. We've got new fore and aft rigging on the boat, so you know, from that side of it, you know, we're going to be in great shape when we leave the secret location and join the rest of the fleet. You know, the fact of the matter is for us with the campaign is, you know, we can still achieve all the goals that this campaign ever had. You know, and that's to try and get it on the podium a few times and to, you know, ignite the nation of China to ocean racing and Volvo Ocean Racing in particular.
Leg 3 begins with a 98 nautical mile sprint from Abu Dhabi to Sharjah, where the yachts will be loaded onto a ship and transported through an area plagued by pirate attacks to a safe haven where racing will be resumed. From there, the leg takes the fleet past India and through the Straits of Malacca, then north along the coast of Vietnam to the Sanya finish in the South China Sea. So that's what lies in store for the fleet. First, though, there are the departure formalities to go through down here at the Volvo Ocean Race Village, and it's another marvellously colourful spectacle as we look at Adil Khalid, the local lad, still lapping up all the enjoyment that they've had with this amazing import regatta. Two Spaniards on rival boats saying farewell to each other, and no lack of glamour as we see the formal side of the party advancing, and that's the stand-up paddleboarders giving the formal send-off, along with His Highness Sheikh Sultan bin Tanhoon Al Nahyan, the chairman of the Abu Dhabi Tourism Authority, sharing stories here with like a mutual appreciation society, I guess, with the Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing team. This, if it looks like a bit of a cultural exchange, is what it is, because that's the representative from Sanya, along with the Sheikh, and Sanya is, of course, the next stop in the Volvo Ocean Race. Kenny Reid, skipper of Puma, doing a bit of preening, and farewells here from the Sheikh to Ian Walker as Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing leaves the dock. What a stopover it's been for these guys, absolutely stunning. And that's the camper people, and I think what everybody is reflecting on really is it's been an amazing stopover. Yesterday, sublime. Well, appropriately, it was the ships of the desert that led the parade into what was an extraordinary day yesterday. Adil Khalid, the local there from Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, and if we could have a day like yesterday today, then I'm sure everybody would be happy. Wouldn't you agree, Peter Lester?
Absolutely, and the special guests and dignitaries on the dock, ideal, looking at the boats, getting ready to go out. A little bit of an oopsie here as Puma left the dock.
Taking an impromptu dip, the family that's there saying farewell. Nice that it's only for a day trip and they'll be able to see them when they come back in. And the conditions could not have been better. It was a bit of a squeeze here for camper at the start, but then the boats powered up, sailing through the spectator fleet, and this was Camper and Groupama having a real tussle. Chris Nicholson there trying to get some of the spectators out of the way, but really the day belonged to Abu Dhabi.
Abu Dhabi, they got the lead on that first downwind, and they did a nice manoeuvre at the bottom mark. Ian Walker doing good work. Abu Dhabi, the local team, dominating this race.
It couldn't have been better, really. I mean, we're seeing the hard work that goes on here. Ian Walker praised his crew. This is young Adil again in there. Very short-handed on these courses, especially with a bit of a breeze blowing yesterday.
Always short-handed as the boats coming up to that ley line to the top mark, stacked up. But it was all Abu Dhabi as they come in to that top mark. Groupama again showing good speed.
But really, yeah, as we were saying, here it is. That's the Duke of York having a good laugh, because Ian Walker at this stage knows he's got the race in the bag. And what a day for the home boat in its home port. Watch the fist pump. That's it. That's what it meant to Ian Walker. Ian Walker, if you could have written the script for what happened yesterday, would you have written anything different?
Certainly not from our perspective or from the perspective of Abu Dhabi and the stopover. I mean, absolutely fantastic day, and yeah, you have to cherish those days because there's a lot of difficult days in this race, so we'll take all the good ones we can get.
What was the reaction like when you got off the water yesterday?
I think everybody was just genuinely pleased. I mean, if I'm honest, I think even our competitors were pleased for us, and you know, just to see so many people in the village, and you know, I just had a fantastic day yesterday. The whole evening was great. Went to the concert. It was just set us up for a thoroughly enjoyable day. And now, of course, we've just had a bit of a chat about it, and we've got to come down from that and get back to the nitty-gritty of racing and try and put in another good performance now.
How do you do that? What's the plan for today?
It's all rather boring and cliched, you know. It's the old take each day as it comes, and you know, one thing after the next. And it's I think it's not very difficult. I think once the sails go up and we start the discussions about what we're going to do, where we're going to go, what the plan is, then the rest of it all just falls away. Certainly as soon as that start gun goes, we won't be worrying about what happened yesterday.
Well, we wish you well. Abu Dhabi's loved having you here, obviously, and we've enjoyed watching it enormously. Good luck, Ian Walker, on the next leg.
Thanks very much.
So to the live action here in Abu Dhabi as the fleet jockeys around trying to get themselves sorted out, and this is going to be the course, Peter Lester.
Well, we're in for a reaching start up around the first mark and back to the start-finish area, and then we do a triangle around the bay and then out to that mart on the right-hand side, and then off down to Sharjah, down the coast. It's like a coastal race, 100 miles. And then the boats will be pulled out of the water and loaded on a ship and sent to the secret safe haven. This leg accounts for 20% of the leg points.
Which is a lot, 100 miles and some very valuable points indeed. Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, well, wouldn't they love a repeat of what they pulled off yesterday? Absolutely stunning, and I think, well, what he was saying, boring and cliche to be getting your game face on. I don't think so, really. Now, with us, I think, on the water, do we have Mike Sanderson?
I hope so.
Conditions out there, Mike?
Yeah, it's looking lovely out here. There's a slight haze, which the locals I'm with tell me will burn off, and the breeze will just continue to build. But at the moment, we've got sort of 12, 14 knots, maybe gusting to 15, 16 in the puffs.
We're looking at Ian Walker. We've got 2.5 minutes to go out here off the city of Abu Dhabi. Tell us what as we first of all look at Abu Dhabi, establishing where the course area is. Amazing the development that's gone on here. This is an absolutely stunning city-state. And that is our course, and that's where it is, and loads of spectators lining the shore of getting the real view from what Virtual Eye has given us here. Now, where does one want to be? Mike Sanderson, where would you like to be?
Well, the way they've set the line up, the secret is going to be right up on the line. You can afford to be down the line a little bit as long as you were right on it. The safer place would be up towards the committee boat, so the windward end of the line. But, you know, if someone could easily get a nice start further down the line as long as they were right on it.
So all to play for. What we do know is that in these early jockeying stages, there's not a lot of difference between the boats. It's all going to be on position, and there will be an optimum spot to be at.
Well, there'll be an optimum spot, Martin, and this is a little bit unusual for yacht racing start. This is a reaching start, and so the key will be, again, time on distance and getting on the line with pace on, so you can get bow forward and not be affected by boats around you. We're inside the last minute to go, and the positioning of the boats will be crucial. There's Kenny Reid, and he was he's renowned for being pretty aggressive in pre-start. Up to windward, Abu Dhabi. To windward of them, we can see Camper.
We could also, just behind Kenny Reid there, see a couple of the jumpers who we'll talk about later. But now with 37 to go, the first and second boats here, and at close quarters.
Well, this is interesting, Mark. We can see Camper's got a Jannar on, and just to leeward of them now, it was Telefonica with their they've actually gone from a fractional reaching tight sail. So have Camper. So the sail selection on this reaching leg is pretty important as we're into 7 seconds. We're into the countdown for the start of the leg to senior. So the boats have started. Lovely start by Telefonica to leeward of Camper. Camper safe at that windward end. There was a little bit of compression down there at the right on the pin. I think it was Group Amar having to make a bit of a course correction to get round. We'll just go out, Mike. A pretty clean start. Who to you looks to be in a strong position?
Yeah, well, for sure the guys were right up on the line, like what we were talking about as being crucial. So, I mean, Camper and Telefonica did a very nice job with killing, you know, probably 10 seconds in the last 20 seconds to go. They were well early and with fractional zeros on, and did a lovely job and were right up on the line. But Telefonica for sure nailed it, and Camper's gone okay.
In there to leeward of Camper, we saw Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, but this is Chris Nicholson driving the boat. He described this to us as a drag race, really, and you know, it's going to be a lot of real boat speed and again boat on boat, and it's going to declare who's quick on this point of sail. And we've always liked Groupama.
Well, already Groupama, who started right down at that pin end. Look at they're taking a little bit of bearing out of Puma. So Groupama are bow forward, they've got clear air. Groupama are moving down at that leeward end, and they're managing to sail out from underneath Puma as long as they can lay that first mark. So it's all action on Groupama.
Yeah, guys, Telefonica is hauling. Telefonica's just gone by 2 lengths or something over the top of Puma, and is now very close to getting over the top of Groupama as Groupama does a change from her J1, so her biggest jib, to her fractional code 0. So Puma is going to get spat out of there. Camper's going to come over the top of them as well. So I'm pretty sure Telefonica will lead at this first mark.
Yeah, good for Telefonica. We can see the Hetzel change happening on board. The Groupama always go on board. So Groupama started on the Genoa, now they've gone to a fractional code 0. But it's Telefonica, Martin, who got that leap off the line, and my word, when it really counts, this team who are winning the Volvo, they step it up.
They do indeed, and I guess they'd have been smarting from their last place in the import race yesterday. So this is a little bit of revenge happening here, but look at the relative speeds there, and Telefonica are really, as Mike Sanderson was saying, hauling.
They certainly are, and as Telefonica push forward, they'll put Disturbed Air down onto Groupama, and that will just slow Groupama up a little bit. So it's Telefonica. You can see now Telefonica are affecting Groupama, so that's allowing Camper to roll down over the top of the French boat, but it's Telefonica who have, they've taken a boat length and a half out of Camper already from the start. So
pretty impressive, Mike.
Yeah, they're really starting to fire up these boats now. They're probably doing 16, 17 knots, and I think Camper's going to end up being second at the mark if it goes how it is now. The question will be, can Groupama get up behind Camper, in fact, before Puma rolls them as well? So, yeah, for sure, Telefonica's done a nice job here, and Camper as well.
Isn't it amazing how quickly we've gone? They've got the game face on. I mean, we've been so relaxed, we're watching, and then suddenly, bang, we're absolutely into it again.
And Telefonica stepped it up. There's no doubt that they would have had a good look at their performance, and in this one, Ika Martinez nailed the start. And with this being a one-way track, the boats down to leeward who got caught to leeward, like Groupama, really don't have a lot of options. We can see that Camper have rolled over the top of them, and Groupama defence is to come up behind Camper and try and clear the area. But look at the difference in the wake coming off the bow of the trailing boats as they're affected by that disturbed air. Mike, how far have they got to get up to that first mark?
Oh, they're only about a couple of minutes away from the mark now, and quite a tricky manoeuvre coming up here, because they've got to furl their code 0 away and unroll it out again. Some may try and do it without furling, but I doubt it. So this is a bit of a cumbersome manoeuvre and plenty of potential. But no, the Telefonica's, she's definitely streaming away here pretty nicely.
And we're going to this case where the manoeuvres are being carried out with a very short-staffed crew, and well, they're lining up on the pumps here, so it's going to be a lot of heavy hard work for the two leading boats initially, and we'll watch that unfold. There's Chris Nicholson down to leeward, getting his eye on the mark.
So Mike, as they go into the first mark, what are the risks? What are we looking for in terms of the manoeuvre?
Oh, the big question here, it's 50-50 as to whether you furl
and redeploy, or just try and jibe it like a spinnaker. And it looks like, yeah, Telefonica's going into a furl. It may even just be a partial furl, and you know, there's just a chance of it tangling. There's chances of it, you know, something getting snagged. So yeah, just plenty of potential.
Well, as Mike said, Telefonica furled. Camper now furling as they come to windward of Telefonica. You can see as soon as they furl how much speed they build. They burn off as Telefonica comes round the mark, followed by Camper. As they come out of the mark, the sails will be redeployed. As Telefonica's redeployed, Camper comes round. There'll be the big grind on board Camper to get the sail full again as they exit. So first mark, it's Telefonica from Camper.
Well, they're floundering a little bit coming out of this mark now. Rupama still got some speed on there. What was the tactic going on there and the positioning of the boat, do you think, on Camper? It looked a little bit awkward.
Looks like when Telefonica, to me, furled, the New Zealand boat carried on a little bit, and therefore they almost got in that situation where they were overlapped. And Chris Nicholson was conscious as the windward boat required to keep clear, so they didn't want to get into that, you know, that quite difficult situation in terms of the rules. Mike, coming back out to you, it's another 2-sail reach with code 0, fractional code 0 as they head down to the bottom. What is the next manoeuvre at the second mark? What are they looking at next?
Yeah, next, Peter, they'll be looking to go to back to a jib. So their big jib, the J1, which the Abu Dhabi and Puma had on for the first reach. So probably about 2 minutes from the mark, you'll see jibs going up. And then only probably 30 seconds from the mark, you'll see the 0 get furled away. And I would imagine that they'll probably drop it upwind. So that's the next manoeuvre.
Telefonica stretching a bit of a gap here over Camper with Emirates Team New Zealand, and it looked to close all together, a bit of a concertina effect of that mark, but well, they've come out of this really nicely on Telefonica again. Yeah,
Telefonica out to 4 boat lengths advantage over Camper, and then we go back to Group Amar, Puma and Abu Dhabi close behind as Robert Saltbush just looks there on Camper of just altering the sheeting position.
They don't really want to set up too high and shoot them. Do the dial down, get the throw down, and then come up to
Just listening here to see what the calls are. Chris Nicholson with his co-stippers, Stu Bannatyne, the navigator behind them, Will Oxley.
They're just kicking out there for what manoeuvre, and as Mike explained, they've got a couple of mechanical functions to do at this mark. They've got to put a jib up, they're going to get that code 0 off, and it's a matter of how hard that trailing boat, which is Camper, want to push into the mark. The next leg is an upwind, and Mike, on this next upwind there is a passing opportunity for those trailing boats if they can get it right.
Yeah, for sure. It's looking like a very true beat, so that, you know, that keeps the tactical options nice and open. Because it is a beat, and it actually looks like there's quite a bit of it on starboard. We may see some of the guys furl just before the mark, drop the code 0 down on the leeward side of the boat, and then tack over and then pull it down. But we'll see as they get closer to the mark.
Mike, how hard is the work on a beat when you're so short-handed like this? I mean, we've seen the guys, you know, having to do all these manoeuvres when there aren't enough of them.
Yeah, for sure, it's really tricky. I mean, it's you know, it's one thing when you're doing all this and you've only got to do a 100-miler like they do today, but when you're doing all this and then you know you've got 7,000 miles to go, you know, that's a little bit different, and you've only got 2 sets of clothes, and if you get a good wave over your thermals today, you know you're in for a pretty rough week.
I was just thinking that you know, we're watching these guys pumping away. Some of the bowmen, like Zane Gills we saw before. Now we're watching the roll up here on Camper.
So the Camper have gone to their Genoa, and the code 0 is being furled up. You can see the difference in the sails. The Genoa, an upwind sail. So Camper have committed pretty early.
Yeah, Camper have gone nice and early, and Telefonica have just matched, which is obviously their safest bet. And so I think they'll prove lies out of me. They'll both get them down, in fact, before the mark, and be nice and tidy for the mark.
I was going to say, here you are, that Zane Gills, I think this on your right there, with all the harness gear on, with his spike and everything, and grinding away, getting a sweat on, and he's got all his waterproofs on, so he's going to be getting pretty uncomfortable inside that, because it's not a cold day, but he knows he's in for a soaking. And hot and sweaty work for these guys.
As the day develops, the wind is expected to increase. Andrew Cape, number 3, navigator on board Telefonica. As we're coming down to Mark 2, from here the boats will go upwind, directly in the wind, although Mike has indicated from on the water that it's along starboard. Ike Martinez takes a dip down just to get the radius of turn around the mark, wanting to pass the mark on the downwind side, so he's nice and tucked up to go up on the wind as Telefonica lead at Mark 2.
Camper now emerging from behind Mark 2 and trailing by what the clock is going to tell us. Big, really quite a big gain now, big gain indeed for Telefonica, Mike.
Yeah, Telefonica's had a nice couple of reaches there, but Camper have done a nicer job getting their code 0 down, and Telefonica had to do a little wiggle, so a little head to wind to flick the code 0 around the windward side of the forestay, and so have given up probably half to 3/4 of a boat length by doing that. So Camper, made a nice little gain there as Puma rolls into attack on the mark. So she's the first one to split onto starboard.
So Puma coming round behind Groupama in gas, in foul wind. So really Puma forced to tack away to clear their wind at that second mark.
And Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing not looking as flash as they did yesterday, and I don't think Ian Walker will be too chuffed with where he's sitting now. And this is not the way that Adil Khalid wanted to leave home waters. First time we haven't seen a smile on his face.
Groupama roll into attack as well, so they're in Camper's gas and decided to get out of there.
Mike, just looking, how long is this beat? How far is it up to that Mark 3?
It must be, but it must be at least 2 miles. It's quite hazy out here and quite deceiving. Camper have just had an issue with their jib. They've got it caught around a halyard or something just as it frees there now. So a little bit of a messy tack on Camper. And now 3 boats on starboard and just the 2 boats, Telefonica and Abu Dhabi, left on port.
Camper have tacked away, and we can see as we come on board Telefonica, they're setting up for attack. Telefonica will tack, come out on starboard. They will be the windward boat. So they are putting a cover. They will set up to put a cover on the fleet. We can see the 3 boats on starboard heading up the course with Camper, and then we've got Groupama right down to leeward. We had Puma, so Camper. Mike, it still looks relatively light. Forecast was forecasting a little bit more later in the day, but right now, about 12 knots.
Yeah, definitely got a bit lighter along that second jib, fractional code 0 and jib reach. And now, as we say that, Telefonica's just poked her nose into a little bit more breeze again offshore here. And so I think, I'm not sure what the shift's done, but she might have gone just fine out here.
Picking it right is Ike Martinez, but we're there now looking at Justin Ferris on Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, and they're trailing the fleet, which, as we're saying, not the position they wanted to be in. There's Jules Salter with his navigational tablet, trying to see if he can read something a little bit cleverer and improve the position that they're in, because this is not the farewell they wanted to give their home port. What do you think it's saying, Pete, about, I mean, here they were yesterday, covered in glory. Now they're just looking right off the pace.
Well, yeah, only off the pace, Martin, because they didn't start that well. In yesterday's race, of course, they started even, they got out, and they got the first shift to lead at that first mark. And again, it's just a good example what this team have done. They didn't look so good yesterday, but my word, when it's come to the business end, Telefonica have come out here, they led off the line, and they were comfortable at Mark 1, but they've extended their lead. And this little upwind leg, it's about a couple of miles up to Mark 3. It's Telefonica who have got a comfortable lead over Camper, the Emirates Team New Zealand. Mike, it looks like they want to spend quite a bunch of the beat on starboard. Is it longer on starboard?
Yeah, it did look quite a true beat. I think one of the things which is looking from where I'm sitting is that the boats that were able to stay on port and get offshore a little bit look like they've nosed into a little bit more pressure. So I'm not sure what you can see from the virtual eye there, but it looks like Abu Dhabi, in fact, have made some nice gains because they were able to stay on port. And to my eye, she could easily have passed Groupama and Puma, or if not, certainly made some big inroads onto them.
You've got a very good eye there. It's better than, or as good as, the virtual, Mike. Well done. That is exactly what is the case. And just as we were talking about Ian Walker wanting to step it up a bit, it's what he was in fact doing. So it was the kind of reverse of the commentator's curse.
Yes, and Ian Walker here, I mean, he came around the Mark 5th, so the option as the boat started to peel away is just to carry on. So Ian Walker and Abu Dhabi, they've extended out to sea on port, and really they can probably pick a ley line to the top mark. And as Mike's pointed out, there's a little bit more pressure on the seaward side. We can see little sea stake building. They're on leg 3 up towards the top mark. They'll come around and then reach across again to that Mark 1. But Ian Walker making a move.
Yeah, they've definitely made some nice gains here. These guys have done a lot of sailing here. This is a building breeze. This is this breeze is so famous here, it's got a name, so that you've always got to be a bit conscious of those. And they've definitely come offshore with purpose into a building breeze, and they're going to be right up there with Telefonica, to my eye, and could look at crossing the others.
Certainly the virtual is reaffirming that, Mike. It's showing that Groupama, Abu Dhabi, who were 5th, virtual is showing them to actually be up to 2nd spot. Although, let's be a little careful with when there's so much separation between the boats, it only takes a little bit of wind direction change or boat speed, wind direction or wind speed change to really change the dynamic of the boat, and we'll see that virtual jump around. We can see on Telefonica, they're setting up on the foredeck, probably getting set up for the downwind leg. Sail selection, we can see already on the foredeck.
Abu Dhabi getting ready to go into attack here, and it looks like what they've done here is just set up slightly past the ley line, so that even if they do meet, the guys coming in, they're not quite as vulnerable to be lee-bowed right on the ley line. So even though they're approaching on starboard tack, the worst thing if it's this close is to have someone come in and lee-bow you and then struggle all the way into the mark. So it'll be interesting to see how they play this.
A brilliant helicopter shots there from out off the coast here of Abu Dhabi, as we're on board with the race leader, the overall race leader, and today's race leader, Telefonica. These onboard shots coming courtesy of Diego Fructuoso, who's the media crew member. He was giving us this all the action from on board the Spanish boat. Sense of urgency that they've got. They're sailing so well.
It's great to go on board. Look how busy it is, short-handed. We can see there that Pepe Reb's very much in charge of the front of the cockpit. as he sets up that windward winch, just getting ready for the tack when they do decide to go back onto starboard.
Just unfortunately, as Abu Dhabi got out to the ley line there, they got a little left-hander, which hasn't set them up so well for coming back in here. And so it's good news for Campo and Group Amar and Puma that were over the other side. But for the locals here behind me, an air of disappointment with the wind shift.
Yeah, quite a big separation between the boats, and it was Abu Dhabi who came all the way over to the right-hand side. They've tacked. They were looking famous, but then a bit of a wind shift, bit of pressure difference. They're coming back. They're still going to be behind that bunch that stacked over on the left-hand side, building Seabreeze. Ian Walker.
Yeah, Abu Dhabi's going to cross Group Amar, so they've got one back.
It's always the danger, I guess, of going out. I mean, yesterday went out on his own, Ian Walker, and came away covered in glory. It's always a bit of a gamble that you could get that shift, but they're looking pretty famous now.
Yeah, but he's got one back, Martin. I think Walker's sailed this very well. I mean, they were 5th. They have gone over, and they're looking pretty much with Virtual. Let's have a wee look. On Virtual, they were looking bow to bow with Camper.
Yeah, it looks like they're back out on the water now. Breeze came back right again, and obviously they're on the right-hand side of the course. Yeah, it looks to me that Telefonica will be the only one that crosses Abu Dhabi. Abu Dhabi isn't going to quite lay the mark, though, so she's going to have to do another 2 tacks.
2 tacks and 2
Very
tacks,
expensive.
a little bit expensive.
It's quite a bit amazing, as you were saying before, Pete, how these boats do slow in the manoeuvres. They need to have that drive over the appendages, don't they, to really get moving?
Well, they do, and also with short-handed, it's pretty hard to actually snap the Genoa in, and on the upwind for good speed build, you want to press on the Genoa, but if you haven't got it sheeted in at the optimum angle, it does compromise that speed build. Great shot there.
Marvellous pictures from the air.
So that's Telefonica, and then we've got Abu Dhabi. Now Telefonica are going to affect Abu Dhabi here by tacking on the windward side. We can see Telefonica already have their downwind sail hoisted. This has been a very good leg for Abu Dhabi.
They are sneaking up, but they might actually get round that top mark without doing the tacks too, which would be a big gain for them.
Yeah, that's showing here, Mike, that Ian Walker's able to squeeze. He'll just burn off a little speed, but burning off a little speed is a lot better than doing 2 tacks.
So we got Camper coming in on port.
Yeah, Camper going for a dip there at the moment, so she's consolidated to go behind Abu Dhabi.
So what a beat by Abu Dhabi on the upwind. Abu Dhabi's come from 5th to 2nd. Ian Walker will be happy. Coming Mark 3. First we've got Telefonica. They'll be followed by Abu Dhabi, then Camper.
At Mark 3, it's Telefonica around first, but the whole game is squeezed up, and an astonishing leg by Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing. Well, there'll be grinners again now on Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing after that. We were seeing a few glum faces, but that was just brilliantly done by Ian Walker.
Fabulous comeback. I mean, any time in any race you can come from, you know, back in the pack to get back into a podium position. Got to be pleased with that as Camper comes round, followed by Puma and Group Amar. They're heading off now to Mark 1, so this is the 3rd leg. This will be a reaching leg. We can see the boats now getting Jenicas on. With
it looks like it might have, from our pictures here, that the breeze might have let up a bit, or is that not the case?
Yeah, it's definitely not getting any windier. I think it's probably the same as it was in the beat. Yeah, probably still 12, 13 knots, something like that. But you know, one of the interesting things to look at down this leg is that these are the boats offshore running sails. So this is as spinnaker orientated as the sails get when the boats are offshore. and you're going to see some quite different sails down the run here. No sail is sort of wrong, but they're often right at different times and different wind strengths and angles, etc.
Camper appeared to have a bit of a problem there.
Yeah, Camper did. They were very late on their hoist and the deployment of their downwind sail. That meant that Puma and Group Amar rolled up onto them. Probably what stopped Puma rolling over the top of Camper was they were then also having to be, Puma having to be defensive with Group Amar. So we've got a little bit of a stack up. But it was certainly looking when Camper didn't have their Jenica on that Puma might roll over the top. So in many ways, Frank Camas probably did Chris Nicholson a little bit of a favour there, Mike.
Yeah, for sure, and Group Amar's still got their bow up, and there'll be quite a bit of frustration on Puma there because the mark's 10 or 15 degrees down, but Puma doing everything they can to protect their breeze.
Yeah, they are. We're on board with Puma. Kenny Reid, he's not happy. Here comes a luff. Look at this. Here comes a luff. It's like sailing in the America's Cup. Kenny Reid, he's sticking it into Group Amar. Luff coming. Group Amar required to keep clear. We could see some action here, but Group Amar look like they've defended, but wow, Kenny Reid, very aggressive.
Yeah, quite a bit of frustration there, I think, and a luff is very hard in these boats because, if the windward guy is able to keep clear and keep his sails set, often the windward boat accelerates, so really hard to defend against.
Well, that's exactly what's happened by the look of it now, that well, you can just see the body language on Ken Reid there, the body language of absolute frustration.
Absolutely, and what will have happened, Martin, is while these two have been playing with each other, a bit of a tactical battle, of course, that will have meant that the boats ahead of them will have extended.
Well, what an incident. Here it goes.
Here's the luff, and it's Group Amar required to keep clear. But Kenny Reid just does not have the manoeuvrability to get up to Group Amar, so Frank Camas did a very good job of not fouling.
And in fact, the Genoa there, it just didn't lose its shape or anything.
Well, what happens, Martin, with that big course alteration, effectively Puma burnt off all their speed. So that was certainly very interesting stuff as we go back to the front. Telefonica leads from Abu Dhabi, or sail repair on Abu Dhabi, so it looks like it might be a Genoa. They've just had to get some sticky back out. They may well have, there's some spray on glue, bit of water to get the salt water off. Mike, I don't know, did you see if Abu Dhabi had a problem with their Genoa? It looks like they're doing a sail repair.
Yeah, I couldn't see anything up around the spreaders, which is obviously the most vulnerable place. So no, didn't see anything big. Probably just a little nick, which they're just doing some preventative maintenance on.
Look, but what has happened, Abu Dhabi have really closed in on Telefonica, Mike.
Yeah, like I was saying before, some very different sails out here, and one of the, Abu Dhabi's is definitely in its sweet spot, and that was one of the issues that Puma had, is that as they luffed Group Amar, Group Amar had a more reaching orientated sail, and so they were almost playing into Group Amar's hands by luffing them. But yeah, Abu Dhabi's going well down this run. For sure, I think Abu Dhabi's pretty slippery in the light and moderate stuff, and that also means you tend to be pretty good when you're going downwind, and often anything under 20 knots.
Sheen of sweat on these guys on board Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing. Now you'll be seeing some non-crew looking people at the back of Abu Dhabi, and these are the guys who are going to be jumping later on. Some local celebrities who will have to exit the boat, and they'll get the call on what to do, how to do it, and then they'll be picked up. And I believe we're looking there at that was on the back of the boat. There was Alistair Cook, the England cricketer, and also Graham Swan is on there too, on Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, enjoying a bit of a celebrity ride. And I don't know how much sailing they've done, but they're in for the ride and jump of their lives, if you like, when they have to exit.
Well, a boat that's moving here, you know, on Camper is Group Amar, as we've talked about before. They were already rode over the top of Puma. And look at Stu Bannatyne really taking attention of Group Amar as they come up behind Camper. And of course, what he'll be looking for is if there's any bearing change, if Group Amar are moving forward on Camper. How does it look to you, Mike? Group Amar got a little bit of pace on Camper?
Yeah, for sure. Group Amar's, sail is in a pretty nice mode down this reach, and yeah, they seem to have some wheels. She once again, as soon as we start to see that bow come out of the water on Group Amar, she tends to be pretty slippery.
Adolf, how's it going right now? We're coming, we're leading. Second. We're second. We're coming for the first.
Okay, Adil, Kelly, just a bit of wishful thinking there, but they've done incredibly well to get from 5th up to 2nd, and that's, I think that makes all the hard work grinding feel worthwhile. But we are seeing, well, the sweet spots, I think Mike was calling them for some people, and somewhat sour spots for others.
Well, certainly Abu Dhabi are moving nicely, and the two boats that are impressing me on this leg are Abu Dhabi and Group Amar. Looks to be getting quite light again, and a little bit of a disturbed air there.
Okay, now this is the first jumper going, and this is a guy I think who is from. Well, there he goes. That's one of the customers from Puma Ocean Racing. They're powered by Berg, and that was one of their customers, the trade customer, going for his dip. And then I think we've also got 2 disc jockeys from local radio, Brent Black and Chris Fade from Virgin Radio in Abu Dhabi here. So we'll see them when they make their jump. I'll tell you, the water's lovely, so that's no great shock, no wetsuits and the like. Should be very nice indeed. So we're still now with the leader, with Telefonica.
Telefonica, not much change. It's stayed around that 110, 115 metres between Telefonica and Abu Dhabi as they come into the turning mark. This will be Mark 3.
At the back behind Ian Walker there, that's Alistair Cook, the England batsman, England cricketer. He's going to be doing his jump in due course.
Gee, these boats, Telefonica and Abu Dhabi, have stepped out from the bunch.
They have too. And in many ways that's probably set the pattern, because we know it's going to be a drag race from here on in. This is really slick work on board Telefonica.
Telefonica, they've filled up their downwind sail, they've gone back to a Genoa, the 2-sail reach now across to Mark 2, so it'll be leg 4, 5. So Telefonica lead at Mark 4. Abu Dhabi, same manoeuvre as Ian Walker has been the mover.
Well, after the early disappointment in this race, they are certainly shining. And as you were saying, Pete, that's a pretty big gap now between first, second, and then back to third, with Camper with Emirates Team New Zealand, and Justin Slattery brings that big Genoa down. And as we expected, Group Amar have certainly closed this one up.
They certainly have. They've come at Camper. Camper setting up to get rid of their downwind sail, their Jenica. They'll go to a Genoa. That's a bit of a 2-sail reach across the bottom. But Group Armour just to windward of Camper.
Sheen of sweat on
Looks
Mike
light.
Parmenter's head.
Looks light
Does
in this
look light.
corner.
Mike, it does look light.
Yeah, it is really light. It's probably only 6 or 7 knots out here at the moment. We've definitely glassy down in this corner of the course. And as Camper finish rolling up their Jenica and are about to go into a jibe. But yeah, for sure it's got light down here.
So what does that mean, Mike? The two boats are around the mark. Are they stepping out?
Yeah, they made some pretty big gains down that reach. The luffing that the other three ended up doing against each other certainly cost them. And you know, Puma in particular they're going to end up sailing on port jibe, VMGing back down to get to the wind mark, so to speak. So yeah, it's been expensive, the little luffing game.
Oh, it certainly has. So Camper now coming in. This is they're coming into Mark 4. They're on leg 4. They're actually going around Mark 1, but so they're about halfway around the triangle. Now they head back towards the start-finish area. So Camper around the mark. But it's Telefonica and Abu Dhabi Racing who have really stepped out. That's a couple of minutes as Group Armour comes round.
Noise of the keel swinging. On board Group Armour, we look down on Frank Camus and his crew doing the work.
Yeah, what's scary for these guys that are behind is, you know, it's 2 minutes at the moment, but as Telefonica and Abu Dhabi get round the next mark, you know, they're going to sail back out into that building breeze, which we think is coming in from offshore. And, you know, Puma's nearly a mile behind Telefonica now, and, you know, the problem for them is it could be a rich getting richer scenario.
So a bit more breeze offshore, Mike, and those two leading boats could step it out.
Yeah, well, we saw in the first beat that, you know, obviously Abu Dhabi made big gains, as did Telefonica from getting offshore, and Abu Dhabi, the local boys, once again went there with purpose and did find more wind. And so, you know, we are expecting maybe up to 25 knots later this afternoon, so that's the direction it's coming from.
So the boat's now heading back down to Mark 2, so that's down by the start-finish area right opposite the port. They'll come round the mark and then head over to a further mark, which is over to the right-hand side. And then they're on the coastal course down to Sharjah. So the inshore component, the in-port component really is coming to an end. But we're already seeing such a quite a major split in the fleet.
And then after this, really, it is a drag race, isn't it? I mean, it's you know, it's going to be down. You know, all of them are talking about the fact that it's going to be down to pure boat speed. I mean, what can you do? What option? You don't really have any options.
Well, you don't have too many options, but what we've seen here, a few quirks in the wind with the wind dying out. Well, I think that luffing incident on that leg across the top, and then at the wing mark it got very, very light, which meant the two leading boats, these two, Telefonica and Abu Dhabi, have taken full advantage of that. And really, this is going to give them a very solid buffer when they come around the mark and head off down to Sharjah. And it'll be a big ask for those trailing boats to catch up to these two.
Well, it looks like a procession. Can you see anything other than that, Mike?
Yeah, well, the one to watch, obviously, is the blistering pace that we've seen jib reaching of Group Armour in the last leg, and they certainly came back from a bigger deficit than this, you know, in the last two legs at some different stages. So they'll want to be staying pretty close to these guys and, you know, very cautious of getting dropped, as will everyone, of course. But I think if there's one boat in particular that'll be looking forward to, you know, maybe jib reaching this afternoon at 20 knots, it's the green and orange one.
Yeah, she's proved to be really slippery in those in the conditions that are prevailing at the moment. Justin Slattery tidies up on board Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, and then they'll be getting soon settled in for the haul. Well, thumbs up again. The smile's back on Adil Khalid's face, and nice that they can be leaving their home port in a pretty healthy position.
Abu Dhabi have been the team really from a pretty deep position. Abu Dhabi have stepped it up. It was on that windward beat that they came from 5th through to 2nd, and they had a good downwind with their Jenica on. They've kept in touch with Telefonica on that 2-sail reach across, and really these two have dropped the other boats quite a long way behind, as we can see there. We look back to Camper and then Group Amar. So that's the 5th. It's Mark II, so that's leg 5's completed. Now they're going to heading out off the coast to the final mark in this initial component. Looks like it's a little bit upwind, Mike. They can't lay through to that Mark IV.
Yeah, well, like what happened in the first beat, Abu Dhabi came round and made a nice little gain on Telefonica along the reach, and so it was in a position where she actually had to do the tack around the bottom mark to clear her air. But I think you'll see her come back quite quickly back onto port, certainly before Camper and the others get to the mark, to make sure she's kind of in her spot.
So, Mike, with this wind direction, you're looking out towards that Mark IV, which is out off the sort of to the left, well, to the right of Mark III. How close are the boats to laying through there? Can they lay through if they've got clear wind?
Yeah, it looks like Telefonica's very close to laying through. Maybe a little bit of time on starboard tack, but very close to laying through. So, you know, I definitely think we'll see Abu Dhabi come back quite quickly.
On board now with Camper and with Emirates Team New Zealand on Big Red Boat, and there'll be eyes in the back of the head for these guys with the menace of Group Armour behind them, knowing that that is the hot boat in these conditions. Can they, well, what can they do to keep them at bay?
Well, you just got to get into your work and certainly just worry about your own boat speed, your own positioning as Camper. They come round the mark. We can see up in the distance, that's Telefonica out to windward there, that's Abu Dhabi. Abu Dhabi had to tack away because of the gas, and Group Amar might find themselves in the same position because it'll be the Camper that'll be affecting, and straight away Group Amar rolls into a clearing tack.
Well, this is Puma now a long way behind, and the fleet really has split an amazing amount in such a short time. Okay, so, well, this has been the start of this leg. They're heading down to Sharjah, and we've got a very split fleet, and we're going to let them get on their way. Now, we'll be keeping this coverage going. We're coming off air on the television side of it, but we'll be going onto the internet, volvooceanrace.com. As we see this fleet splitting apart, we see a big lead for Ika Martinez on Telefonica. It's going to be a matter of just 5 or 6 hours before they reach Sharjah. We wish them well on their way in this second leg here, Volvo Ocean Race, heading down to Sharjah.
mark, and in fact they're attacking to come across to that top mark. What was a little bit scary, Martin, is that light spot with the boats. You know, typical of sailing somewhere warm, you get a cell of pressure, or in that case, a cell of no pressure. And boy, that can be a deal breaker. And in many ways, I think that's what happened at that turning mark at Mark 1.
Well, Mike Sanderson said that when he was with us.
It's very cellular, and the cells sort of move around in the heat, because this wind has not really established yet. Abu Dhabi.
Well, they've just done an astonishing job. I mean, having trailed the fleet and looking pretty sad. They're back in, and it's a great farewell. And we did talk about the fact that maybe that win they had yesterday gave them the confidence.
Oh yeah, but
and they'll step it up.
Yeah, but I think they played the game with what was given them. To be honest, at the mark where they trailed the fleet, really they didn't have too many options. They came around behind the fleet, and the fleet started to peel away, if you remember, clearing air. Ian Walker took the option and just went straight out to sea on one tack. And when he got out, there seemed to be a wee bit more pressure out on the seaward side, coupled with a bit of right-hand shift, and he took full advantage of that. So Telefonica, this is Mark 4, and this is the last mark we'll actually see. It's the clearing mark. It's clearing to get out of Abu Dhabi waters. And now we really now enter into the coastal race phase, Martin. And it'll be a long. I'm guessing it will be a long time on port tack, and with the wind as they get further down, it'll gradually free up and get into a reaching mode. See, Abu Dhabi, so Telefonica there have placed themselves right on the gas of Abu Dhabi. So that'll affect the performance of Ian Walker's team. You can see, looking up at Telefonica.
Now, guys.
Yeah, so in fact, Ian Walker tacking away to clear his ear. You just can't sail in that gas position. Behind a boat, there's airflow, of course, is very disturbed. But for Ian Walker, that will mean obviously 2 extra tacks, which can be a little bit costly. But they've got a pretty sizable lead over.
Okay, that's if you're wondering what's in that yellow box, that's the virtual eye tracking equipment, and that's being picked up now with in its Pelican case, if they can get their hands on it.
Good seaway running. There's the Pelican case with virtual eye equipment on board, gets retrieved.
Pretty rugged stuff, rugged cases, rugged kit. So they'll be heading to get probably the next boatload of gear. But this is now at the moment going to be follow the leader for quite a while, I would guess.
Yeah, sail coming up on deck. Look, it's hard work. It's pretty hot out there, and just starting to stack the boat for the long leg down to Sharjah.
Looks like a jumper at the back. I think that's Alistair Cook, who is in this florid shorts now. England batsman out here for the series against Pakistan. 72 tests at an average of 49.72. His highest score, 294. So he's done a few exciting things in his life, but this is going to be another one. The guy next to him in the grey hat is Graham Swan. His name is Chin. He's 30. He's a 32-year-old and veteran of 36 tests, taken 153 wickets. His best figure 6 for 65 now. I wonder what his style is like when they get round to doing the jumpy bit. My tip would be to
the belly flop.
My tip: keep your legs crossed.
Well, the water's quite cold, and they don't have wetsuits on, so I'm sure they'll.
Cold,
I'm sure they'll take a big deep breath.
Yeah.
They're looking apprehensively, to my eye, back at the camera.
So I wonder when they're due to go. They'll have a chase boat ready to pick them up. Yeah.
They're having a good laugh about it. This will be a dressing room story. I'm not sure if they look entirely confident, Mark.
Well, it's when you're out there, it's going to look quite high in a funny kind of way when you're high side on the boat like that. I wonder where they'll actually jump from come the leap time. Try and keep an eye on that. Jules Salter behind is taking a bearing.
It's interesting how long Ian Walker's he's continued on starboard, heading out to sea. I can only assume that this is not the making board down to Sharjah, but maybe he's looking for more breeze offshore.
Could well be the case. We're getting ready in the background there is media man Nick Dana. But we're looking at one of the forward cameras on Abu Dhabi. One of the forward cameras looking back. Wondering what that big dome is at the back. That's the Inmarsat dome that has those pictures. From where the pictures come, that great big dome on the back on the left-hand side of your picture. But hanging on and getting some pictures. This is Nick Dana here. Now he's the media crew member, and he's advising Alistair Cook and Graham Swan.
You can just run and jump back.
Well, and Ian Walker, you know,
run and jump.
I'm sure, Martin, in the next minute we're going to see these go over the side.
People do it on the other tack. So.
Could be within a minute.
Okay, let's do it then, guys. Otherwise, TV will run out. Hey, fellas.
That's the media man here with his camera. I think we're about to get the leap.
Probably best to just do it down that side.
Well, of course, safety is always a concern.
Jump in, you'll be fine.
Ian Walker, you'll be fine. Off you go.
You'll be fine. Away you go.
I'm sure it's no harder than facing a 150 kilometre fastball.
There he goes. Whoa! In goes Alistair Cook. It was a fair jump. You see how the life jacket exploded? Here goes Graham Swan. Oh, style! The salute. I love it.
Very good.
Very good. Excellent. And this is a bit of a thrill there. He's managed to grab hold of his cap. I had a go at this back in 2006 in Wellington, and we were going downwind at speed, and we did manage to do all the sensible things, my cameraman and I. We did remember to take the cell phones out of the pockets and leave them ashore, and the electronic car keys and the like. But that'll have been a real buzz for those guys, and now they'll just get the pickup, and here comes the boat. That's the scary bit, I think, is when this boat comes flying in at you, and here they'll just
you have to be careful,
even up on board.
A couple of big motors on the back there. You certainly do not want to get anywhere near, but graceful entry on board.
Oh, good stuff. Here's the look at the salute. Isn't that neat? Whoa, good man, good. Graham Swan. Excellent. Well, you'll be talking about that when he gets home, I'm sure. Good stuff. Well, that's a bit of a diversion. Back into business mode now. Ian Walker just adjusted his platform there, get himself horizontal, and they're into their business now.
Well, what's interesting here, Martin, we're seeing here a lot of leverage for Ian Walker. The rest of the field are pretty well on the other tack going along the coast. Ian Walker he had to tack to clear his air on Telefonica, but he's continuing out into the Gulf, and I just wonder whether they're looking for a bit more pressure or getting into that building pressure first. And then, of course, if that happens, and Jules Salter, who's the navigator up, you can see standing with his navigational tablet there, I think they're looking for a bit more pressure out further out to sea.
Well, remember, he spent a long time out there. He spent the thick end of a year training in these waters.
We go to Camper now, and they're actually also heading out to sea.
Okay, well, you see on the back there, if you're wondering where all these pictures are going to be coming from once we've lost the helicopter and the like and the media man, well, that's it. That's the Inmarsat dome, and I can tell you that the signal will go a third of the way to the moon, goes up to the satellite, 36,000 kilometers, and it comes up and back in just under a second to one of 2 Earth stations where the signals land and then get spread around the world in a fibre optic cable. The magic of Inmarsat, and it's quite extraordinary. And I mean, you know, as a media person myself, using the pictures that are coming off the water that the media crew members are providing, it's been just phenomenal. And if you think back in the 37-year history where these boats would just head out of port and then you might get a few scratchy bits of radio for the next 3 or 4 weeks, because of course the boats were a lot slower as well, and then you would have to wait till the crews came back with whatever film that they had at the time. So the way that part of this race has developed and brought it into living rooms and onto computer screens around the world is quite fantastic. In fact, that is the media crew member there in the middle of the picture, with taking some shots, and that's Hamish Hooper, who won the media award on the first leg. He was on the podium again for the second, and he's done a top job. And on Groupama, which he's looking back to now, Jan Roux, they're getting a colossal audience in France, where he's going live off the boat twice a week onto national TV. So the technology in that regard is pretty impressive. Hamish Hooper there, who's just hopping down into the hatch, and I think that we're on the internet. This is Hamish Hooper now, and coming towards the back of the boat. Is he going to be coming back with a message of some kind? He's got a bit of a smile on his face. There he is. And that's, I think, a special wave for his newly arrived boy, Hamish Hooper, and that'll be the message going all the way back to New Zealand to Michelle, his wife. So a touching moment there on board camper, and I wonder how Chris Nicholson's feeling, because he's got Groupama breathing down his neck, and he's looking at the stern once again in the distance somewhere of Telefonica, and he's going to be wondering, well, you know, when can I get my point of sail, which we would think is downwind.
It is downwind, but I don't think Camper are too unhappy not to be upwind. I think they fancy their boat speed upwind, and just looking at the boat now, we can see it looks all pretty tidy, and Robert Salthouse trimming down there in the cock. He's responsible for the trim of the Genoa, and Tony Ray's on the main sheet, and see Robert Salthouse just making little incremental trim changes. They've got the barber hauler on the Genoa about mid-track, and that barber hauler or the vertical lift actually controls the twist of the sail, and the trimmer will look down to leeward, looking up through the body of the sail, evaluating the depth of the sail and the twists. So that's the primary role of the Genoa trimmer. Certainly Camper looks pretty tidy. She looks tucked in. Unfortunately, we can't see any of the other boats around them. And Robert Salthouse goes down, has another quick look.
Yeah, not their favoured point of sail though, this one, and they'll be hoping to minimise the losses as best they can. And I wonder if there's heading out to sea tactic is well, there's Groupama. We're not quite sure of the relativity.
Well, they're also on starboard, Martin. So it looks like now that the fleet are actually, I think the first boat to break was actually Abu Dhabi. We saw them going out to sea for a long time, and now Camper are also heading out further off the coast, and Frank Camas and his Groupama team are also heading out. Where they are in relative to each other, now that we have limited coverage, because we've lost our helicopter, but can't really judge where they are boat on boat. We just saw the the virtual box of tricks being also discarded off the boat. It will be picked up by that rib. So the electronic animation, software, hardware comes off board Group Armour.
Thirsty work there at the back of the boat.
Quite hazy, Martin. See
is,
already
yeah.
behind, you actually cannot see the shoreline or the buildings, so it's a pretty typical day, I think, for this sort of condition. It gets hazy. This Shamal wind picking up a bit of haze, bit of sand. And so the navigators, as we get away from Frank Camas, I think as this leg develops, it'll be interesting to see if they can make inroads into the boats ahead, which namely will be Camper, and whether Group Armour has the legs to come right up to Abu Dhabi and even Telefonica.
Well, that'll be the hope, and talking to a number of the crews, they think that this is the boat that does have the legs in these conditions.
It's like pretty nice conditions. Around 15 knots as we're on board Group Armour.
Okay, so
Now
we're
this
back
tells
on
the
our
story.
tracking system, and this tells us what's going on.
Yeah,
And
it certainly does, and you can see that it's still Telefonica. Telefonica also now on starboard as they head down to Sharjah. They've got a pretty solid lead there. That's just showing the advantage line back to Group Armour. The advantage line, but well, Group Armour look like they might be the mover because
already,
you know, they're starting to step out. It could be that Group Armour have got themselves right up to second.
already.
Certainly
that
the
is pretty
advantage
speedy
line.
stuff.
I wouldn't put that down to speed though, Martin. I would actually put that move down to a tactical choice of Group Armour. We know that they broke early at the line at the last turning mark as we now come to Puma. But that's very interesting, isn't it? That
yeah.
you know, within a matter of what, half an hour, Group Armour have come through and look like they've got up to second.
Look at the sail stack. Well, they're going to stay on this tack for a very long time by the look of that stack with Tony Method. Still, it looks like he's just hauled all the stuff up there. He's still breathing heavily, and that's all that weight stacked up on the side of the rail. They have some stanchions that they lock the sails into and then strap them down. See those orange straps there, and that's to get as much weight as possible up onto the windward rail. That weight equates to speed. But he'll be a frustrated man, I would think, wouldn't you?
Yes, I think so. Certainly getting rolled at that mark would be very happy about that. But it just looks like now the making board, Martin, for them to have stayed now, it must be starboard. Possibly the wind has moved around a little bit, but all the boats now are on starboard. They're pressing quite hard. Good speed on there. Looks like the wind's up a little bit too as they get further out.
It's one of the more heinous jobs, or heinous requirements of these boats is to stack the sails.
I think it's just good to go back and have a look at virtual, and you can see obviously Puma, but it's up to windward, right up to windward, where we've got Group Armour who have been the mover, but a solid lead for Telefonica. But the game changes very quickly, you know. It looks like Telefonica and Group Armour have stepped out from the field here.
It does indeed. What can they do? I mean, I guess that's the issue, really. You know, it's pretty difficult, isn't it, when you know, it is such a kind of one-way track. It's a slog.
Well, it's certainly looks like a long fetch on starboard, and it really turns into a little bit of a drag race. We can see a little bit of a flap there on the Genoa of Puma. I would expect pretty shortly one of the trimmers will go down and address that leech cord in the Genoa. Here we go. Up the trailing edge of the Genoa, there's just an umbilical cord that just controls the flutter. So you pull down on the cord, it goes into a cleat, stops the sail from flapping. We can see it's been done, and then it just goes back into a Velcro pocket, flat pocket. There's Puma, just waves are getting up, breeze is getting up. See Puma there just leapt off a little one. Full stack on the windward side. The sails are all packed up on the windward side.
On the left there with the camera, that's Amory Ross, their media crew member, getting a few snaps off. He's got the commitment to send stills and video and blogs and all the rest of it. He's dutifully doing his job. Oh, this is, are we talking rich and richer? It's certainly looking that way, isn't it?
We now just come on, we get the opportunity to have a look on Telefonica, and my first reaction there is they're sheeting a little bit wider than Camphor. You can see the Genoa further out on the rail and going further, so that might mean though that the wind is starting to increase. They're powering the boats up, so a little bit wider sheeting angle, and there's definitely more wind now in the last 15 minutes.
Looks like it, doesn't it?
Yeah, boats are starting to move around. Speed will be up. Iker Martinez has a quick look. He'll be pleased with what he sees, I'm sure.
So they've got this slog down to Sharjah. They'll be there sometime after dark tonight, and those points will have got divvied up, and Telefonica will, if they stay in this, they'll have clawed back everything they lost yesterday, if the positions stay the same, and they'll be in a really nice position. And then the boats will go onto the ship, the armed ship, which will take them through the pirate zone and to the secret safe haven, where they'll be rejoined by the crews. We think around maybe January the 22nd is the sort of initial target, but that could move out depending on how long the ship takes, and then the restart, and then the real leg begins in earnest. And we know that for all these guys on these boats, it is going to be a brutal bash of something like 4,600 nautical miles. That we reckon that the whole thing's going to take about 3 weeks, and well, there's very little you can say that's nice about it, really, because it's going to be wet, windy, it's going to be hot, it's going to be cold. We're going to have storms and calms, and where that's pretty normal in any kind of ocean racing, they've also got to deal with the Straits of Malacca between Indonesia and Malaysia before they get to Singapore and turn the corner up into the China Sea. And there's a heap of issues with the Straits of Malacca. They're narrow as far, at some stages as narrow as 37 miles. There are shallows. It's one of the busiest shipping lanes, so when we're talking to some of the guys about how they deal with that, and you want to avoid the ships, you get out the shipping lanes, and that drives you into the shallows, so you've got the hazard of getting shallower and shallower, and then you also get the fishing fleets in there with all their nets out and very few lights and a lot of debris. So there's not a lot to look forward to down there, is there?
Well, it sounds pretty tricky to me. And Straits of Malacca, one of the waterways that I think all seafaring people sort of take a bit of a gulp when they say they're going to sail through it. It's a long way. It can be problematic. But we look there as the boat's now almost out of range of what we can do, Martin, as we pull back with virtual and we have a look as the boats head pretty well south now on starboard towards Sharjah. There's been some big movement in the race. I mean, this boat off the line was didn't have a great start, but they had a fabulous beat midway through that when they were going around the marker buoys inside close to Abu Dhabi. Since we've sort of got into the offshore component or the coastal component, it's been it looks like Group Amar have been the mover, but one thing that's been the common denominator has been Telefonica. Telefonica have led off the line, they've led at each mark, and I think Ika Martinez and his team are stepping out. Martin, what I'm seeing here now is there's been a subtle trimming change. It looks to me as though they're starting to free up a little bit. We can see the boom is a little bit lower. Without looking at the leach of the mainsail, I suspect they've just given a little crack of ease to get the boat a little bit more vent, a bit more horsepower. So they're not hard on the wind. And the Genoa, you can see the barber haul is on quite tight, but the thought ship's track is quite wide, which would indicate that really Ika Martinez is starting to press forward as opposed to wanting to take height. Now, the forecast means that the wind is actually due to free up as they go down the coast, but boy, he's got the trump card at the moment.
He has indeed. This is absolutely romping along now, and I don't know what sort of speeds they're up to now. It's got to be up in high teens, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I know they're going pretty quick. A bit loath to guess, but it wouldn't surprise me if we're seeing 15 or even 16 knots at that angle. Certainly Ika Martinez pushing forward as the Geordie Califat has another look at the trim. As we now go back to Puma, they've changed the stack, so that would tell me that Puma are setting up to tack.
About to tack, yeah.
As Kenny Reid winds down.
The big grind now on board Puma. So all this work they've got to do again and shift those stanchions across, restack all the sails. Namely, Ross comes out with his camera. On board with Puma.